today's theme is the name of the game for professional coaches. So I'm excited to talk about this and get into it with everyone. And Johnny will have things to share about how his game, his relationship to the game, and his game in and of itself has changed over the last couple of years. And to me, this is one of the most fun topics for professional coaches, right? Because many coaches don't relate to their businesses as fun or lighthearted, or like we can enjoy this process, right? Yeah, Johnny's raising his hand. He was very low on the fun quotient, let's say.
Very low.
That's my delicate way of saying that Johnny was, if we gave out awards for maybe the person who might harsh on everyone's buzz about the doom and gloom that could occur for all of us in this business, Johnny was our guy. But you know what was amazing about you, Johnny? You stuck with it. See, that's right. That's some of the game. You totally did. So in 3 seconds, we're going to start, and I will officially introduce us. So first of all, welcome everybody to, let's see, this is Facebook Live number 3 in 2023, and this is the name of the game. My name is Carolyn Freyer-Jones, and I have been a coach for over 15 years, worked with coaches for almost as long, and I lead the CFJ Coaching Success School with the fabulous coach Johnny Roman, who is the director of the school. He's also an outstanding coach. He's went to the school for 2 years, and we're here to serve you again like crazy for the next 90 minutes about where are you in your own game. So I've been sharing a little bit in my Instagram stories and on Facebook in some posts about my experience of coaches, definitely when they enter the business, not having little or no game. And we're going to define game today in 2 different ways. So there's one way in terms of, are you playful in your business? Are you relating to it in a lighthearted, fun way? Are you having any fun? That's one way we're going to relate to this. And are you making it a game when it's time to get 3 more clients? Are you making it a game? Are you gamifying it in the name of making it more fun? So that's one way. Then the other way is more as an adjective, like, are you game? Are you willing to take on things that are new, that feel challenging? Are you game? Like, how big is your game muscle? And that applies, both of these definitions apply regardless of where we are, right? So we could say, Johnny could say, oh my gosh, we were just teasing, right? Johnny's relationship to the business early, right? We would not describe as lighthearted or fun or joyful even. It was very like grippy and stressed.
Yes, intense, stressful. Yeah. I was making myself miserable.
Yeah. So, and if you can relate, let's just put it out there. If you can relate, tell us in the comments, right? If you're like, Johnny, I'm with you. Thumbs up on Johnny's initial way of being, right? We want to know if that's where you're at now, let's hear it. And then there's the other piece, right? Of how game are you, right? And the thing I would say about you, Johnny, that you demonstrated so well, even in that kind of more miserable relationship to the experience of growing your business, you dug in. Like, even though you were sort of not in a joyful place about it, you were unwilling to let go.
Yeah.
And that's having game, right? And if you've been an athlete in your life, right, like this is a great metaphor for people who played athletics. It's like, when you're an athlete, right, you have to have game. Not having game, not having willingness puts you on the bench. So are we having, I see a couple of comments.
Yeah, Julie is a pro overthinker.
Ooh.
Which is awesome. Totally me early on in my pro to the.
Yeah. So that's not a fun game for everyone's consideration, right? Like the reason we're having this conversation is not just because life is more fun when we're more playful. We actually can create more clients from when we have a looser grip and we're not as, so stuck in our mind, right? Like, I really want to be clear with everyone. Like, we're not having this conversation. It's not frivolous to talk about how you're relating to your business, and it's not frivolous to talk about, well, where am I and how game I am to get in there and do what can feel challenging over and over and over again. Or to get in there and do over and over and over again what might feel not as exciting as you planned, right? For some people, they realize, like, wow, a lot of this business is connecting, inviting, having conversations over and over and over again. Now, for me, I love it because people are all so different, right? And as I grow in this business and as I'm in it longer, even the people who I might not want to coach, somehow people become more amazing to me, right? They become more like, wow, look at this person, right? So I can even appreciate when it's maybe someone I might not be able to help. I have just a greater appreciation for all of humanity, right? And what we all work with. So we want to really slow all this down today and go like, well, we're going to do some ratings. Like, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being like, I love creating my business, whether it's challenging or it's not great at the moment. I'm at a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. I have fun. I think this is an amazing thing. I can't believe I get to do this every day. And 1 is, we'll use the Johnny scale of like grippy, miserable, and like I would try to make Johnny laugh, and it was really hard to get a good laugh out of him. These days, I can get him to laugh pretty easily at most anything. Not then, not in his first year in this school. He was like looking at me with laser eyes, like, this better work. This better work.
And it did.
Or everyone in this room is in trouble.
And it did work.
So,
it really did.
It did. So let's hear some of your ratings, right? Like where you are. And then Johnny, while they're coming in, where would you put yourself now?
Well, right now, it's dipped a little bit because I just had, for those who don't know, I just had my second daughter 2 months ago. So we're in the mix of baby newborn phase and all of that. And so I just came back to work a few weeks ago, and I'm navigating sort of like relooking at my schedule and paring back and, things like that, which at times can feel a little more stressful. But in general, I would say maybe now I'm at the 7 or 8, and prior to that I was like 9, 10 range. Like, it was fun, and that's not to say like there's still a lot of fun, and I'm in even in new enrollment conversations right now that that are one I had the other day that was very clearly not a fit, but at the same time, like, I had so much fun serving him, and so. Yeah, it's like, it's still there. I love, I really connect with the service of it, no matter who I'm talking to.
It's awesome. It's really great. So I'm going to share a little bit, and then, Rhonda, she's like, business development, I'll put it a 5. I love the distinction there. And then Courtney, I see you're an optimistic 7.5. So, I'll talk a little bit about where I was at the beginning of becoming a professional coach. So remember, I started with a small practice on the side, right? I did not leap right away. I was working full-time at the University of Santa Monica. I had a couple clients. They paid me very little. I was really not thinking ever about going full-time. And then Michelle Bauman came into my life, who eventually became my business partner and my best friend. And somehow her coming into my life brought the possibility of this becoming a real profession for me. She like brought it to life, right? Now for me, given the way my trajectory occurred, I don't know that I could, my early stages of growing my business are so intertwined in the experience of Michelle and I doing it together, right? Because, and this is important though for everybody, doing it alongside of her and then with her on the things that we were working on together made the whole thing so much fun. even the quote unquote bad parts, right? Even when we didn't get a client, even when Steve pointed out we were needy or grabby or whatever, it all became just hilarious in a certain way. It didn't mean we didn't have feelings. So I share that though, because I want to be clear. I don't want you to be like, well, Carolyn, I don't have a Michelle. Like, I just don't. So what do I do? You have all these colleagues, right? See, this is why I talk about community. So whether it's a community in a group that you already belong to, in the CFJ Coaching Success School, that's an extraordinary community. There are 8 million coaching groups for coaches. This is where you get to find a community where you can have a similar experience as me, where we're all laughing and growing together. So I can't say enough how much I didn't realize how valuable that was until after Michelle died, right? Because in a way, she was my coaching group, right? She was my community. And I didn't realize until after she was gone, like, wow, this can be a lonely business, right? Without community. This can be an isolating business. So I share that because some of you, whether you're here live now or you're gonna watch this later, you're trying to do this alone. And especially in the first 5 years, I want to say to you, don't do that, right? Like, find a community that makes sense for you, because it lightens the whole experience up. Because even if, you're where Johnny was, right, and you're not finding it particularly fun, Johnny was in a room with other people who were. And I know that made it better for you, Johnny, even if you weren't feeling it. Would that be accurate?
Totally. But it was also, I mean, there were a number of things that occurred. One, even if I was, relating to it from a very intense place inside, or had a like really strong grip, like I knew I wasn't alone, right? Like, I had people, like, it was so fun to be playing the same game with other people. Like, we were all learning the same thing and applying it in the same way, obviously with our unique situations, but that was inspiring. It was challenging. It was confronting, but I wasn't alone in it. It was very like communal. I felt like I was a part of something,
Yeah.
which was huge for me.
Yeah. And in the same way, for me with Steve coaching Michelle and I got to watch Michelle, like, she would stumble and then I would go, oh my gosh, that could be me. Like, I had all of these same experiences that you're describing, Johnny. So I want to go back to your ratings, right? So we've got, let's see, a 5, we've got a 7.5, we've got a 5. Eric Woodard is coming in hot with a 9.92. Love it. That's great. Love it. So here's what you want to ask yourself, and you can post your answer in the comments. You want to be like, so what's in the way? What is in the way? If you're at a 7 or lower on having the experience of what if this is the fun part? What if this could be the fun part? What is in the way? What are you telling yourself? What are you making it mean? If it's not like speeding along and everyone's not saying yes, what are you making all that mean? So put in the comments, like, what's in the way of you being at an 8, 9, or 10 right now, right? We know what Johnny's is. Johnny's is his whole life has been upended again, and he's figuring out, how do I do this right now with a new schedule and an additional being in my life, right? And that's what I love about that, is we all are going to have different stages of that in our business, whether it's a new baby, or the other scenario is a kid leaves for college and now you can overwork and have no boundaries, which isn't so great either. Or whatever, you want to create something new, right? And it feels uncomfortable and scary and all those things. So we want to get at this, because as I wrote in one of my Instagram stories, if you are less than really a 7 on this, it's leaking into your conversations and it's leaking into your action, right? Like, you don't need to be at a 10 to take action. Like, I don't really care if you're at a, Johnny was, you know, what, let's say he was at a 3 in the school, right, for a while. He still did what he needed to do, right? He'd send out his invites, he would connect. He had a lot of thoughts about those, and he had a lot of feelings about those, but he was committed to staying on the court. He was committed to keeping his game high, even with the low feelings, right?
Yeah,
he was like, I'll do it.
Those were my reps. Like even though it felt challenging internally, I'm really, I reflect on that whole experience positively because I learned so much just staying in the game and sending out the invites, even though like it felt so like tense inside, and hitting send was like super scary. But like I know that it built my muscle significantly through that time. And I didn't have to do that alone, right? Like I was supported throughout all of it, which was huge.
Yeah. So one of the things you wanted, so Johnny, let me know if we're starting to get some answers on the what is in the way, what are people telling themselves that's creating the gap. And what I want to say as you do that is I want to say that you know you can do this miserable. That's a radical statement. I'm not suggesting that that's where we want to come from. And I don't want anyone to think, like, I've had coaches who are like, ooh, you know, I have this going on. I mean, coaches who are in real grief for a variety of reasons, whether it's a physical loss of someone or like a different kind of loss. And, you know, my stance on that is like, of course, take care of yourself. And we can still do stuff. Feelings are not a good enough reason to not be on the court. They're really not. They're to be tended to, and they're not meant to get us off the court, right? And so many coaches, one of the challenges I see in the business, number one, is there's very little real awareness of what it's going to take to grow this thing when you start. Like, really, there's so little information that's really honest about, no, this is going to be a 1, 2, 3 year process of getting this thing to be robust, where you know how to make money consistently, where you're creating clients, where your practice is starting to feel like, okay, I have 5 clients, 1 leaves, I create another. Like, there's very little information on that is honest from my point of view, with the exception of a few coaches, including me, and maybe some other, like, you know, Steve Chandler is certainly radically honest about this. And for some coaches, it is less than a year. And a year is usually the minimum. So we can still do this, even if my preference is you look at, well, what am I telling myself that's making this so not fun? So do we have anything, Johnny, or people telling us?
Yep, we've got a few things. Charles said clarity on action steps. Rhonda said there's low energy feelings to do the work of reaching out, writing invites, meeting people out in the world. It doesn't give me energy like the coaching conversations do. I'm sure behind it all is fear of rejection and judgment from others.
Well, let's just take on that one, because Rhonda's probably, I'm guessing, not alone, right? So Rhonda, there's this funny thing that goes on in the profession where people distinguish, like somehow they make the coaching conversations like those are fun and amazing, and the business building is like, ugh, like that's like the not fun part. And I really want to challenge you in this, because it's an error in thinking, and it's an error in, it's like you're missing an opportunity for your consideration. Because if you're willing to go, wow, what have I not been willing to see here? Like that could be, like, I'm making it, this doesn't give me energy. This creates low energy. Yet it's the very thing that breathes life into your business. It's like, it's the very thing that gets you to all that coaching that you love to do. So how, it's like, this is, to me, this is a miss. It's like, wow, the very thing that creates those clients that you want to coach lives over here in enrollment and in conversations and in connecting. And like, what are, like, it's like you've stripped the magic out. Like there's magic in that part. There's magic. And even if there's not magic, if you're like, Carolyn, sorry, I'm not buying, no magic for me. The bottom line is, what is it going to take for this to be a requirement that no matter what your energy is like, it's getting done, right? That your energy being low is not a good enough reason not to fulfill on getting your business more robust, right? Now, I'm for it being fun, and how can you make it a game, right? Because games are fun, and look, I don't, like, we're not sitting around in my house playing Monopoly every night. That's not what I mean. And some people love that. There's nothing wrong with Monopoly or Uno. We have good friends who love that stuff. What I will say though is, I want you all to consider this. So, do you remember when you were a kid, right, and you played in the park, right? And there was sort of this natural, like, or when you had new sneakers and you were like, oh, I used to think my sneakers would make me faster. That was obviously a huge illusion, at least for me. But I used to think, I have new sneakers, I could finally beat Chris maybe in a race. Like, do you remember that kind of healthy, like, I want to beat her, I could do this, like, that's so fun, I want to flip over on the monkey bars, I could do that. Like, there was this healthy sense of, I want to try that. And I'm sure you see this, right, Johnny, with Sayla? Like, I want to try it, I can do that, right? Like, whatever it is, right? We want to consider the possibility that you could bring that over here. Like, I want to try that. Like, and I'm guessing, Johnny, Sayla's not like, ooh, what if I fall?
Not typically. She's talking about my 2.5-year-old daughter who, yeah, she's especially at the stage, she sees me doing something or mom doing something, and she's like, I want to do that all by myself.
Yeah, right. So it's like, how do we bring, all of us had that. That's not like gone. That lives inside of us.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes for you to gamify this, even if it's choosing someone to chase. So I'm a big fan of, find someone that you want to chase, who's like, oh, I admire that person, but you know what? I think I could kick their butt eventually, right? Like, a great coach I know, she's a fitness coach. She was really inspired by this athlete in the CrossFit world. And she created this whole project for a year. The athlete in CrossFit, I think her name was, I think it was Christmas Abbott. So the coach I know created this whole project called Chasing Christmas Abbott. And she would like follow her on social media and do all the workouts that she did in the, like, I'm gonna chase her because she's cool and I want to see if I can get as strong as her and lift as heavy as her. Now, it was a real, like, joyful thing to chase this athlete. So who can you chase in the name of, you know, Johnny's cool and all, but man, I bet I could, my game could get as good as his. I bet I could, right? Like, we do a lot of that in the school. Like, I'm for you, Michelle and I, we were in a group with Steve Chandler, and there was a guy in the group. Now, we got to see everybody's billings every month. We saw everybody's reports. We saw everybody's billings. And this guy was like making well over 100K more than us already. And we were like, what? That guy? Don't get me wrong. Nice guy, great coach. But we were like, what? And Michelle was like, oh, no, I'm going after that. Like, if he can do that, I can do that. Like, let's go. So I want to invite you into, like, the spirit of a healthy game, not a jealous, angry, it's not fair that this person has created this energy. That's different. I want to invite us into a healthy game of, like, if I did all that the way they did, I could do that. I could catch up to them. Go catch up to someone. Like, really be like, all right, no matter what, it's my job to grow my business. That is part of the job requirement and the job description. I can do it unhappy. I could do it with low energy. And what could I do to make it more fun? Because that exists, it's available. So let's see, Johnny, let's see if, I'm gonna take a look and tell me if there's one that stands out to you. I got Nicholas. I get a drain of energy from it because I have this nurtured beliefs that my efforts won't pay off. So kind of, what's the point? So I'll answer that one, Johnny, and then you tell me if there's another one. Paula, see, Paula's smart. She's chasing me. Go, Paula, in Ireland. I'm all for it. I'm like, bring it. I want Paula to surpass me and become the Irish Coach of the Year. So let's do it, Paula. Nicholas, I first of all, I want to say I hear you, right? I get a drain of energy from it because it's a nurtured belief that my efforts won't pay off. And I want to say it's time to let that belief die off, because that belief is not serving you. Like it's like, it can be there, but if you're nurturing it, like you're giving it life, you're focusing on the wrong place. I just want to be really direct. It's like that will not serve you. It does not support you. And you're absolutely right. Who wants to get up every day if the belief is it's not going to work anyway, right? Like, I don't want to get up if that's the belief I'm in. So I offer that, right? Because some of this, for some of you, is about taking dominion of what's happening inside of you, right? Like, there has to be a place where it's like, that's not okay anymore. I love you, but we're not focusing on that. I have work to do. I have work to do. So that's what I have to offer you, Nicholas. What else are you seeing, John?
Jason said, I'm telling myself I'm not good enough because my life isn't perfect. I'm also telling myself that I'm not a business person, but the concept of demonstrate, not communicate, did help the latter.
Okay. Well, first of all, Jason, I was not a business person either. I don't know that Johnny would have identified as a business person. I mean, really, Jason, I really want you to know, and that's for everyone. Most of the coaches I know, they're like, it's like they enter the world of coaching and all of a sudden it's like, what? I own a business now? Like, I have to do, I'm a business person now? I remember when that landed for me, I was like, I don't know that I ever really thought this would ever happen in my life. Like, I really had to adjust my whole self-concept. And for me and Michelle, like, what I loved about it, Jason, and for everyone, I'm a great example. If I can become a strong business person, anybody can. And I mean that, right? Like, it's the simplest of businesses in many ways, right? Whether you do individual coaching or you do some group coaching, from a business model, it's a simple profession, right? It's like, we create clients, we get paid. They either pay in full or you have a payment plan. It's not like a complex business. So I offer you, Jason, you don't need to be a business person. You just need to be willing to learn how to run a business. That's it. Willingness to learn and to get into action about it and to really embrace, like, wow, I'm responsible for feeding my business. I'm responsible. Diana and I connected after one of the emails I sent where I was in one of my emails, I was sharing about the monotony of coming up with meals for my family and how much I was stunned when my daughter finally got on solid foods. That was another place where I was like, that's something we now have to do. Like, somehow I did not really give that a lot of thought in the decision making to have a child. Just like running a business is often not a lot of coaches' thoughts when they're like, I want to get certified, or I want to be a coach. I love people. And all of a sudden they're like, ooh, I have to feed my own business? Yeah. And that, for your consideration, to me, is one of the most important muscles to take on. Because if you think you're a good coach, you're like, oh, I love the coaching, it's so amazing. You will be a better coach if you get good at this. And I really mean that. Every coach that's ever gone through the school that has learned how to do this, including myself and Michelle, we became better coaches in that process. You learn things about yourself and about people. You become more sensitive and more nuanced. So I challenge any of you that are like, I don't like that part. Not a requirement to like it, but does it interest you to become a better coach? It's like, what's going to be your carrot to get you moving more? Johnny, who else had one?
Well, I just want to, if I can add to that real quick, like, that was for me part of the journey of becoming a professional coach, right? It's like, prior to becoming like really treating it as a profession, I was dilly-dallying, and it was much easier to kind of avoid that whole like, wait, this is a business that I have to run. But then really transitioning into professional coach, like that context of like, yes, this is part of it. It was, I don't want to say a seriousness because I was so serious before, but it was I mean, there's no other word, professionalization of it.
That's right.
Where I up-leveled in my relationship to the career of coaching and profession of coaching that I was choosing, which includes elements of running it as a business, but then how I showed up for that with my clients was very different.
Right.
And that alone made me a better coach in the process.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's like as if I have a dentist appointment later today, and I went there, and the person who like does my cleaning was like, oh, I didn't realize, like, I went to dental hygienist school. I didn't realize though that I was actually going to have to do this 7 times a day with people. Ooh, you know what? It kind of gives me low energy. So I don't know if I'm going to do 7 a day. But meanwhile, I'm waiting for my appointment, right? Like, I'm like, oh, but wait. And she's like, I don't know if I want to. This gives me low energy. I'd be like, what? I would go out to the front. I'd be like, I think you have a problem with your business and your person, right? We would all be shocked if someone said that. Like, that's even considered, we'd all be like, whoa, there is something weird going on at that dentist. Don't go back. Don't go back. So I offer that. What else are you seeing?
Well, Diana said, so true. You mean I have to keep feeding this business and my children?
True.
It's true. It's true. Carl said he very much relates to the community and connection piece and the sense that I'm engaged in something meaningful day to day. Earlier, he said an answer to the question that shows up each morning, what's the most important, valuable thing I can take action on today?
I would add to that. I really like that. I would challenge everyone to start really asking themselves every day, what's the most important thing I need to do today in service to the growth of my business? So make that question more specific. What do I need to do today, or what actions do I need to take today in service to the growth of my business? Because then it gets real narrow. We all know what those answers are, right? It's like we need to be connecting way more. We need to be in conversation way more. We need to be building relationships way more, right? Because some of you you have a little bit of that dialed in, and you're still not making the kind of money you want. And then my answer to that is you got to really, that's where where you need to increase your game, right? Your stamina, right? So if you're a basketball player and it's like your coach says, you know what, you have good skills, but boy, you're like aerobic capacity, we got to build that. Like, you got to be able to be on the court longer, right? So some of you, it's like you have to build up the showing up and doing the things that grow your business more every day. So for example, we do something in the school where it's one of my favorite things, where it's like, show me your calendar, right? It's this big game, and it's a game because I know how uncomfortable it is to have my own calendar looked at, right? Like, I already know this game, right? If I'm like, wow, my business isn't really as robust right now, all I have to do is look at my calendar and go, oh, that's because there's very little conversations on it, Carolyn. It's not rocket science for me anymore. So in the school, we play a game, and I invite you to do this for yourself. It's like, look at your calendar and go, do I have between 3 and 4 conversations on there every day, 4 days a week? Do I have 2 conversations on there every day, 4 days a week? And if your answer is, what, Carolyn, that many? What? That's creating a strong business flow, right? So that's where Johnny's like, I went pro. he turned pro when he realized I have to feed this thing on a regular basis. And that's my job. It's my responsibility, just like feeding my kids is my responsibility. And I don't get to opt out. I don't opt out because if I don't feed my business, people starve, including me. And then Johnny doesn't get to do all the other fun things he likes, which is the coaching and the like deepening the coaching relationship with someone. So I want to hear, like, put in the comments, like, is there someone you're willing to chase? Are you willing to take on making this more fun? And what could that look like? And are you hearing me on the capacity of how much you're on the court, how often, for how long needs to go up? Let's hear, like, if you have questions on it, please feel free, ask a question. Johnny and I love questions. Right, Annie, you're right. Not, yes, what does the business need to have done today? Not what I need to do today, right? Because those are two different answers for me. It's like, what do I need? Well, I need a massage. You know, I need a really good cup of coffee. Those are what I need. That's not what my business needs, right? So I love that you said that. Casey, I have this false belief that I don't know how. Yes, you absolutely do have a false belief because you know exactly how. Like how, when anyone says, I don't know how, if I know they've had a coach, if I know they've been in my school or a group, that's, to me, when that's already happened, I know it's a smoke screen. Like it's a fog. Like we're creating a fog that's maybe in the way of increasing your want to. It's not a how-to question anymore, Casey, for you. It's like, how strong is my want to? Because you know that the house. I offer that. Fitz. I think I secretly believe that the need to feed my business equals I'm a fraud of a coach. If I was really worth my salt, people would be chasing me, not the other way around. Fitz, I'm so thrilled to share with you that entire few sentences is completely false because I don't know anyone who's getting chased around. Really. I mean, the top coaches I know that I'm connected to, all the faculty at the school, Steve Chandler and lots of other coaches, every one of them will have dips in their business based on various life things. Maybe it's just they were busy serving clients, they didn't turn up the flame, and they'll be like, ooh, I need to create some clients. They have to take action. Now, maybe it's less action than a newer coach, right? Maybe it's they write to one person who they coached 2 years ago, and that person's like, I'd love to talk to you. But they still have to take action. So Fitz, let that one go, really. Like, not accurate, not the truth. And the fraud thing is like that everyone deals with that. You know, I think every single coach, it's a developmental phase. So I just would encourage you, like, you can be like, yep, I know, we think we're a fraud. We're still, people don't relate to that. Nobody has ever in my entire coaching profession said to me when I said, hey, let's talk. They were like, I don't believe you. I actually don't think you're real. I think you're conning me. No one ever was like, you're a total fraud, Carolyn. How about you, Johnny?
Did anybody think I was a fraud?
Yeah. Besides you.
I pointed that finger at myself many times.
Oh,
but
I
no,
know.
Nobody else pointed it at me. No.
So Fitz, I want you to hear that. And anyone else who's like, oh, I've done the fraud thing, I don't know any coach who's like, yeah, actually, someone accused me of being a fraud. No one ever gets accused of being a fraud other than when we do it to ourselves. And Claire Marie, yeah, you also, that's just not accurate anymore. Go ahead, Johnny.
So Fitz said, he said, I just let it go. So.
Yeah. Jason, I love that you know who you're willing to chase, and I need to push myself to have more conversations. And you might language it a little bit differently. You might be like, and I'm going to grow my muscle and my capacity, and I'm going to create more conversations, right? That's turning pro. It's like going, acknowledging, it's maturing up in the business, right? To go, this is part of my job. Like or dislike, fun or not fun, it's part of the business of professional coaching. It just is. It's like we want to get honest with as is reality. So no more like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. It's like we all have been there. And now you're like, well, I sat in that Facebook Live. Both Johnny and Carolyn talked about this. I can no longer be in the I didn't know. Now it's like, what are you going to do with yourself? How are you going to make it fun? How are you going to like create more action that shows up on your calendar? And Natasha, if anything, the more confident someone is in claiming what they are, the more I believe them. Yeah. Yep. I want to have more conversations and I'm willing to create more connections in the name of service. Beautiful, Casey. I love that. So who has a question of like, well, Carolyn, I hear you talking about like increasing my aerobic capacity to have more conversations on my calendar. And here's my challenge. Like, what are the questions that are lurking here? Or if you have a question about like your fun muscle, right? Like, you know, Johnny is a great example. Like Johnny now laughs more than most people I know in terms of just about everything that goes on in the profession and himself and how coaches in the school struggle. Like we're here to serve you. So if we can turn your fun muscle, if we can activate it while we're here, let's do it. And if there's something specific going on in your business, an enrollment situation, or hey, I'm not quite getting the whole conversations, like creating more, like what's missing for you? So give us your questions, your best ones.
Yeah, Patty said she's still a little stuck on what could make this part, the invites and conversations, more fun.
Yeah.
I hear you on the aerobic capacity. That part feels accessible to me as an athlete.
Great. So Patty, you know, one of the things to ask yourself, for some people, you know, everyone has a different idea of what's fun, and some people don't really have fun anymore as grown-ups. So it's a big conversation. And I offer to you, it's like, what is what got you into the profession, right? Like, so for me, what got me into the profession was like, I love coaching and I love creating things, right? I like creating, whether it's a piece of writing or a workshop or a group or the school, right? I love that. And I love serving people, right? Like, I don't care. Michelle used to say people would be shocked. They would say to her, you spend 2 hours with people? Like, you do that? And then they don't even become your client? And she would say, well, like, what else am I going to do with my time? Like, what else? Like, this is the best thing ever. I get to be with people. I get to serve them. So Patty, you want to find, like, what is your, like, what is the calling here? Is it serving people? Like, what's the energy that's going to get you to turn up the flame, right? If you're like, wow, I love serving people. Like, that's what got me into this profession, right? Like, I love that. Like, we want whatever, or fun. It's like, wow, when I like getting conversations on my calendar. Like, you know, when I was the head of admissions at the University of Santa Monica, and our job was to enroll 276 students into the program once a year. 276 enrollments, right? Now, you might hear that and go, that's insanity. Like, I would just hide under the covers every day. When I worked there with the fabulous Veronica Allweiss, who was my partner in that work, she loved the numbers. She would be like, all right, you know, we got 5 this week. What's going to happen next week? You know, she loved that. She loved that, like, Carolyn, if we get 6 enrollments this week, we're ahead of where we were last year. Like, she just loved it, right? And I loved it because it was fun for her, right? So it's like, you, Patty, you want to look at what is going to make this real for me, right? So, like, you might want to look at, what did I make last year? For some people, it's really motivating to be like, all right, I gotta get further than that by November, right? So I have this many months until November. How am I gonna do that in a way that like really makes that happen? You know, you wanna look at what are the things that create momentum for me inside of me. Now, some people are like, I had a guy I coached, he said, I don't want any goals. I don't like goals. Goals create stress for me. And I said, okay, all right. So we're not going to focus on the numbers. What are we going to focus on? And he was just like, I just want to be in action, reaching out to people. I said, okay, all right. So are you willing to just track that? Are you willing to be like, all right, I made 10 connections today, and that was five more than yesterday. And just acknowledge yourself, right? Like, what is going to create momentum for you? And everyone needs to find that out for themselves, right? Because as a professional coach and business owner, this is part of the process. You can honor yourself. And the only thing you don't want to do is be like, oh, I don't hear, I don't see, and I don't know how, so I'm just going to hang out on my couch. That's not, as a pro, that's not a choice we make. Johnny, what are you seeing? Oh, who? I see identifying the who.
Yep. Nicholas says, had a question that if I have the aerobic capacity, what do I say to people to initiate the conversation of considering my group programs? It's like I'm at the gym and don't know which equipment to use first.
Yeah, that's a great one. So, Nicholas, one of the things for you when we're filling a group, you know, it is a different process in some ways. And some of this is we can't jump the gun on, like, if you have people already that you've offered the group to and they've declined, right? Now you want to look back on your lists, right? You want to be like, well, they declined but said they might be interested next time. Then I want to go back and I want to be like, Johnny, you know, my group is running again. You said last time that you wanted to hear about it. And there's some, like, you know, such great people are in this one. Do you want to have a conversation about it, right? So some of it is with groups in some ways, Nicholas, we can be more bold in the name of the group, right? So like for me, when Michelle and I were running groups, we're not talking about us. It's like, oh my gosh, we have this amazing group for women. You absolutely want to talk to us because somebody who's doing what you want to do is in there. There is someone in there who is she's a writer for a TV show. And you've talked about wanting to do that. You should totally talk to us about this group. We want to use who's in the group as a way to encourage people to have conversations with permission, obviously. I may not share their name, but I want to be like, hey, I have someone who is, you know, the head of HR who's going to join my next professional women's group. And I know you also work in HR, and do you want to talk about this group is going to go really deep on decision making as a female leader? Let's talk, right? Nicholas, you want to be like, what? You want to think about who do I know? What is going to be the draw to get into a conversation? And I'm going to say something that's kind of, it goes against what I just said. The relationship they have to trust you already. So in other words, being a trusted source of transformation is part of our job. We grow ourselves as trusted sources of transformation. If someone doesn't know me, I can't make that leap so quickly. If they don't know me, they're like, who's this guy saying, right? But if someone knows me, like, you know, Steve Chandler has reached a place where if he reaches out to someone and says, hey, listen, so-and-so is running this group. I think it would really serve you. Do you want me to connect you with them? 99.9% of the coaches who know Steve are like, yes, please connect me. Because Steve Chandler is a trusted source of transformation, and he's grown that over time. So you want to ask yourself, are you growing yourself as a trusted source of transformation? Are you someone who's like, I want to send you something. You mentioned this today. I think this could be really useful to you. Or I just saw this video. I'm going to send it to you because you talked about this. It's like we need to grow ourselves in that way. So Nicholas, I want you to sit with that in terms of your group. Johnny, what else?
Well, Nicholas said, he responded, he said, I'm hearing that. How will this draw them into the group? Why will it benefit them? I don't know if you want to keep.
Yeah, I don't, Nicholas, it's a great question. That has to be found out on the call. See, that's where slowing down with someone and getting more into their world, right? So that's part of our job too, whether we're filling a group or whether we're creating an individual client. We don't know how, I mean, even if I coached someone 2 years ago, their whole lives may have changed. I have to go into that conversation now totally brand new to what's happening for them. I don't want any assumptions that like, this person said they were interested in my group last year. I don't know what's transpired that would make it right for them now. So I want to really be in, hey, you mentioned to me you were interested in my group the last time. I have no idea where you're at. And why don't we just slow down and have a conversation? I'd love to hear where you're at, what's going on in your life. And then I need to get into their life. I need to be like, tell me what's happening in your world. I'm not even thinking about my group at that point. I'm not even thinking about creating a client at that point. I'm thinking about connecting and serving this person with a total sense of, I have no idea where it will go. No idea. So I don't run any assumptions that my groups or a client spot on my roster or my school is absolutely right for someone until I talk to them and find out what's happening for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Natasha has a client question.
Yeah.
An old client to resurface, had a conversation, set up another call because the client expressed she wanted to hear what it would look like to work together again. She was a no-show and a no response to a question mark. The client has historically been late and no shows to calls, and they've had conversations about accountability, and she's not sure how to address it, whether to let her go or not, because it seems she's not super committed.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, yeah, big flags, right? You're seeing big flags. And if she didn't respond to the question mark and she's not responding, you're obviously seeing, Natasha, this has not evolved quite that much, right? Like, it's not like there's been a big shift. So, I mean, my point of view on something like that is I usually always say to someone one more time, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? Because you totally disappeared. You know, because sometimes things happen in people's lives. And then if I was going to consider someone like that as a potential client again, there would be a very clear conversation of, I would never take you back on as a client without this handled. Like this whole like disappearing, ghosting, going off like the grid when you've requested time, like I would never work with you unless that is getting handled. Like that means that's not an agreement, that's a requirement. And I mean that, like, you pay me, that happens more than twice, the coaching is done, and I'm keeping your money. Like that's the level at which, Natasha, with someone like that, they have to want it so much and they want to shift that pattern so much that they're willing to be held to that level, right? Because I don't want to coach someone who keeps like disappearing. That's just not how I want to spend my time. And I would say to them, this pattern is getting in your way on so many levels. I wouldn't ever agree to coach you again without a much stronger requirement, much. So you can let us know if that handled it. Nicholas, only present one program. Anytime we start presenting, I have this program and I have that program and I have a spot on my individual roster. Too many options. We want to put 100% of our energy into filling one specific thing, especially if it's a group. Because the moment we start to be like, well, I could really use some money in my individual practice. Steve Chandler, over and over again, if Michelle and I got distracted, like, oh, I need a client, he'd be like, the moment you start to put energy into your individual practice, your group will not fill. Your group won't fill. And we would be like, really? Just this one conversation? He's like, nope. And he would say to us, tell that person you will have a conversation with them after your group is full, that you are dedicating your time to people who want to talk about this group. So it's a high bar, Nicholas. If you want to fill your group and there's one group you're offering, you have to put your total focus and attention on that. Natasha, uh, you have to decide. I call it out, like, you know, especially if someone's already been my client, right? Like, if someone new, I might not be that direct, but if I've worked with someone before, I'm like, let's just go right to it, right? So it's like sometimes as coaches, we are the only people who can say something to someone because we are the only ones who we have no agenda, right? It's like everybody in our lives can be saying, gosh, she's always late, she never shows, she blows me off, she's so flaky. That person could be losing important relationships because people are like, nah, I'm not even reaching out to them anymore. As a coach, you might be the only person in that person's life who's like, this is unacceptable. Like, I'm not going to be in relationship with you with this pattern operating. I mean, it's unacceptable. This is not a way to conduct your relationships. You might be the only person who can say some version of that. So what else we got, Johnny?
Well, Sarah, as a follow-up, asked, no refunds ever, to your comment when you were saying, you know, if this happens 2 times, I keep your money, etc. Ask that question.
You know, my policy, right, is if someone, I always say to people, and they see it in my agreements, like, look, if I am going to fire someone for whatever, personal, or there's some way they're not, I'm just like, this is not working. Most of the time, if not all the time, I'm giving them a refund. If I'm the one initiating, we're not going to continue. I'm going to give them whatever remains, that, and it says it very clearly in my agreements. If someone says to me, like, and we've had the agreement, like, these things occur 2 times, we're done, and I keep your money, I'm not going to go back on that because I was clear with them and they said, got it. Like, that's going to really help me. Now, my policy, my business policy is if someone quits their coaching, like, I don't want to do this anymore. It says right there, if you quit, there is no refund. There's no refund. It says it up front. Have I ever refunded people? Absolutely. I've made exceptions based on certain situations. Sometimes my inner guidance is what really creates that. So have I made exceptions in the past? I have. But I also wanted to be clear, it's going to be uncomfortable when we do this. You might at some point want to quit. And that's like, your money doesn't get refunded just because you decided it's too uncomfortable. Right? Like, we can be the only people who take a stand for someone, staying in it with us even when it's hard or uncomfortable. So what else? Oh, Annie's like, what's your preferred communications to people who cancel or don't show? You know, Annie, I have a whole joke around that. I'm like, well, does it really matter? Because they're not talking to us anyway. So, I mean, you know, we talk about the question mark where we just put that in the subject line, and then it's like, are you okay? I didn't hear back from you. I'll do that once or twice, and then next, I have other people to serve, right? It's like, I don't want to spend a lot of time and energy with someone who's disappeared. Maybe a little, but not a lot. So, yes, Sarah, we just sent out in one of our emails the agreements, the sample agreements. So Sarah, if you email me or Johnny with, like, send us an email, Johnny's going to put my email address and his in the chat or in the comments. Email one of us and we will send you the sample agreements that we give out in the school. And you can take them, you can customize them however you want. So absolutely. So Johnny just did that. So let's see where we're at. So, okay, we have like an entire 30 minutes, people. And Johnny and I have talked a lot about these 2 things, right? Like, there's making it more fun, even as you acknowledge it's a requirement. And then there's increasing your game, right? You're on the time, on the court, like, I'm willing to keep doing this over and over and over again and strengthening your game. Johnny, I saw Trish had a question. Did you see that?
Yeah, we have a number of questions.
Okay.
From before. One of them from Rhonda. She said she feels like the hard part is how to identify the who to have the conversations with. She knows she's, you know, talked about this before. And when she networks, it feels forced or like she's, you know, going to go out and solicit strangers to strike up conversations. It feels like she's making this really hard.
Yeah, I would concur, Rhonda, that you're making this really, really hard because, you know, our job is to connect, right? So I'll share a Tarita Preston story because she's just such a good example of this. She's on the faculty at the school. I think she did the school for 3 years, if I remember correctly, right? And Tarita, what I love about her, she shared last year when she was doing some of her live facilitating in the school. Tarita goes out to go get a manicure pedicure, right? And she'll just be sitting next to someone and she'll be like, hey, how's your day going? And they're like, oh, it's going okay. And people just start talking to her, right? Wherever she goes. And she will just keep that conversation going. And what she said is often people will be like, oh my gosh, I've been talking a lot. I can't believe I'm talking so much with you. And she'll be like, I don't mind. It just sounds like there's a lot going on. Like she'll encourage it because people get uncomfortable, right? So Rhonda, I offer to you that like going out and networking, I would even change that language. It's like you're going out to connect and serve. So Michelle, I'll give another example. Michelle, you know, had 2 sons and they were both like in middle school and elementary school. And, you know, look, when we're in that phase, if we have children, we're often going to parent gatherings or things at the school. And Michelle would say to me, okay, I'm going to that meeting tonight. I'm coming back with having connected with someone. Someone I'm going to have connected with, and I'm going to be emailing them something that they can use. And eventually they're getting on my calendar. And I'd be like, okay. She'd go to her thing. She'd come back. She's like, I spent 25 minutes talking to this mom who's attempting to get back in the workforce. She was amazing. I'm sending her one of Steve's books. And I said to her, will you read it? If I send you this book, will you read it? She said, absolutely. And I said to her, if you read it and you email me, then we'll put time on the calendar. So Michelle was like, I'm going tonight with an intention to serve somebody, not to connect with 5 people. She would have 1 or 2 conversations wherever she went, 1 or 2. Now, one would almost always with Michelle lead to them emailing and eventually a conversation, and the other one maybe not. And she was so at ease with it. She was like, I'm not here to get someone. I'm here to give. So Rhonda, you want to ask yourself, are you going out into the world with a context of giving, of generosity? It's like, if we're in that context wherever we go, anything is possible, right? As long as we're not trying to rush the process, where we're like, well, I talked to them, they're not on my calendar yet. And I'll say to someone, well, serve them, send them something based on your conversation. Take your time with people. We don't become trusted sources of transformation overnight with a new person. We just don't. And sometimes we don't become that with someone we've known a while because people can be cautious to share themselves, right? To let us in. So we need to be willing to be like, some people are a shorter game, some people are a longer game. And I would challenge you, Rhonda, that you have people in your world that you have overlooked connecting with and serving. Like many of us start to be like, well, that person. I remember early on when I was like, I got to create some clients early in my business. I would go onto Facebook. This was part of my business development time. And I would be like, I'm going to scroll for 20 minutes. I'm just going to scroll. And I'm going to see who pops out at me. And my goal was I was looking for people in my world that were either up to something that was interesting or big or big to me, or who was sharing something they were challenged with. And I remember one woman was sharing about her new job. I private messaged her. She knew me from the University of Santa Monica. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lisa, I just saw your post about your new job. That's amazing. Wow, that is fabulous. And I said, look, I don't know if you know this. I have left the University of Santa Monica and I'm a full-time coach now. And if it would be helpful, no strings, do you want to have a conversation about like this new job and you really launching into it with as much like strength as possible. And she's like, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Now, she knew me from the University of Santa Monica, where I was the head of admissions. I already had some credibility in her life, right? She knew me as someone who was like, she knew me as a USM grad. We were both fellow grads. She knew me as someone who was a strong professional in another context. That added to my credibility. So that created her being like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you, right? Now, if she didn't know me or barely knew me from some very minor interaction, she might be like, why does this person feel like they can ask me if I want to have a conversation? Like, this feels really inappropriate given our relationship. So can everyone hear that? The difference in terms of what is the context for the relationship prior? Newer, gotta go slower. Gotta think about the context in which people know you, right? So Rhonda, let me know, and everybody let me know, is that helpful to hear? Like, does that give you some guidance? Annie, when you need to bring in the money, how do you suggest the giving versus getting perspective works when you do need to get, and you can't fake that to yourself? That's a good one. Johnny, do you want to take that one? Because you've had times where it's like, no, I really need money.
I mean, it all goes back to for me, what worked the most for me was just trusting in the intention of the service. Like, yes, there's the need. Yes, it's important to make the money, and like that, like really kind of spinning out on that thought and that fear is something I could easily do that could easily get me off the court and out of action. And it would be a sort of a reminder to like, yes, that's true. And I still need to keep going. I still need to connect and invite and get into conversation. I still need to be of service, and indulging that thought right now is not helping that intention.
Yes.
And so that's what helped me. I mean, it's, yes, it's a very real need, right? But the process of really connecting and getting people into conversation and serving them does work in the grand, like long run grand scheme of things. Like, things will start to connect. You will start to get yeses, as long as you don't let that thought kind of continuously put the brakes on or distract you from the like day in and day out practice.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add to that, I love that you said that, Johnny. And the other thing to remember, Annie, is like, if like Steve always said this to people, and I say this to people, right? If you need money, like, one thing is, it depends on what the need level is, right? Like, when a coach is like, well, I need to make rent. When we need to make rent and rent is due, September 1, we don't want to have that kind of pressure riding on our conversations, right? Like, if you need money and you're like, I don't have any buffer, Carolyn, then my encouragement to a lot of coaches is go get some other money some way. Like, create different work so that your conversations are not completely pressured. Like, I need this person to say yes, or I'm not going to make rent. That is not what you want in your conversations, right? I'm always about like, look, we want you to feel relaxed. Relaxed is way more fun. So I'm for, like Steve would say to people, you may need money, but you don't need that person's money, the next person you're going to talk to. It's like, we want to, as Johnny said, broaden it. Like, I might need money, but I don't need this person's money, and I can still serve this person as fully as possible. Some of this, Annie, is about learning to compartmentalize, right? Like, it's real, called, when I'm about to meet with someone, I put my needs outside the door, right? My need for money does not enter the room of a conversation I'm having. And that is real. Now, if I cannot do that. If my stress level is so high, given my money needs, I got to look at my life, right? I got to be like, I'm pulling out money out of my savings to make my life easier. I'm pulling out money out of my IRA. I'm asking my Aunt Betty to give me the 50K she said she's leaving me when she dies, because this is what I need to create more space so that I can be more relaxed in my serving. So Johnny and I are not diminishing people's needs for money. Johnny can speak to that probably for 48 hours straight based on his own life, right? He could do a marathon, right? Like a telethon on needing money for real. And so Johnny is such an incredible example of someone who truly needed money given what was happening financially. And somehow he managed to work with himself where it's like, that will not leak into my conversations. It just won't. And that's a service consciousness, right? It's like his life was functioning enough, just barely, that he could bring his full presence into a conversation where he could be generous, where he could be relaxed. Now, the moment the conversation ended, Johnny might be like, ugh. Maybe the moment they hung up, he's like, what, Carolyn, in the Facebook page, this didn't happen, right? All fine. But in the conversation, Johnny was able to generate non-attachment.
Yeah. And I'll add, I did have other, ways that I was bringing in money at times, other part-time stuff that was supplementing, so that it did help kind of lessen the burden and the
Totally.
It was easy.
There's a reason I worked full-time until I had 4 or 5 clients, and I had more confidence in my ability to create a full-time practice, right? There's a reason I did it that way, because that was how I was able to stay relaxed, right? The other way wouldn't have worked for me. So you have to know yourself, right? It's like, what's gonna work for me given my life? So if you're sitting there stressed out, totally needy, desperate, because you need money now, you wanna look at, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to really serve people and have my best conversations with that going on. That can be the truth. Not everyone can do that. And then, you have like a Rich Litvin story who had he left his job, he had no money, he charged $20, but he was able to psychologically manage that. Not everybody could, certainly I could. And Michelle, there was no way. Michelle was like, money was oxygen for her for a long time. So she was like, yeah, that's not happening. I'm not leaving till I know I've got this. So let's see what else we've got.
So earlier, Trish did ask a question.
Great.
She said, because she's completing a 4-month coaching group, her first, and she wants to know, when does she begin focusing on creating individual clients? She's asking because enrolling a group takes a lot of time and attention, effort. What is the balance?
Yeah, I love that question. That's a great one, Trish. So first of all, bravo to Trish, right, Johnny? Because we know that was her first group and she filled it, which is great. And Trish is one of those people, so that everyone knows, right? Trish has tons of different communities, people who know her, people who have great respect for her. So she has a lot of robust community. So Trish, you could start creating 1 or 2 clients now, right? Because right now you're just serving your group. You're right. You're not filling the next one yet. You're deciding when the next one is going to happen. I would say go for it, right? Like you could be like, all right, I want to create 1 or 2 clients, just 1 or 2. And I would say run with that, right? Because until you know exactly the dates of your next group and you back out like, okay, I need 3 months to fill the next group because I know you want it to be bigger, you can be creating 1 or 2 clients right now. Like, go for it. You have a fabulous coach, Mr. Johnny Roman, and he'll help you.
Absolutely. Let's do it, Trish.
Nicholas, you can absolutely have the need for money and still enroll powerfully. Can you? You specifically, I don't know, because I don't know you well enough. Can we? Yes. But that's how we have to know ourselves, right? Because I'll be frank, when I've needed a client early in my business, right, where I'm like, ooh, this would really help us, there's no question that my neediness leaked into my conversations, right? That was when I was early in the game, and I didn't have a lot of skills to keep my neediness out. I hadn't really done enough work inside, right? Where I had blind spots where I would say something and then I would run game film with Steve and he'd be like, what did you say? Did you start to like argue with them about whether or not now is the right time? Like I'd be like, they'd say, oh, you know what? I can't really do this right now. I need a couple more months. And I would literally move into being like, well, is that really accurate? Because given what's happening in your life, it seems like now would be the best time. And Steve would say, pause right there. Needy, manipulative, and you're not listening to the person. And I was like, I would like argue with him. I'd be like, but wait, but they look at their life, look what's happening. And he'd be like, they said now is not the best time. You do not want to be the one who starts to argue about that, because then you're salesy. Right? Can everyone hear that? It's like, then you're salesy. So you don't argue like I did with people when they're like, yeah, I can't do that right now. Here's what's happening. The moment that happens, you want to agree. Oh, yep, I could see that. I really acknowledge you for knowing what the right timing is for you. Many coaches unknowingly, big blind spot, start to be like, but wait, you said your house is on fire. If your house is on fire now, don't you want the coaching now? And their house may be on fire, by the way. I've talked to people where in my world, I'd be like, wow, they want to wait. That's amazing. But I can't be the one who's like, I mean, if I know someone, if I've been in relationship with them for a long time, maybe then I'd be willing to be like, can I offer something? I'm fine if you want to wait. And it sounds like you just said your house is on fire. Are you sure about that? But that's only if I have a long relationship with someone and my inner guidance says you have to say something. Most 99% of the time, I'm like, got it. Sounds like your inner guidance is telling you to wait. So let's see. Or if the house is flooding, right? Sherry Roseski, yes, right. That's a good one. Because Sherry Roseski did have her house flood. So that is why she's saying that. Luckily, that is not occurring anymore. All right, we have 15 minutes left, people. What other enrollment challenges or opportunities? And maybe this is a time, right, to be like, all right, and Johnny, I am thinking that this would be a good time, this conversation today, that if you want, we have a handout that's all about like evaluating your activity, right? You grade yourself on how many conversations you're having. If you want to do that, email or message Johnny or I, and we will send you that handout. And I'm putting a warning on this. So this will, for many of you, you may not like me or Johnny or anything after you do this evaluation, because it will likely make you mad, because you're going to see that your grading, that the grade you get in what you're doing in service to your business might be low. And if you have like school karma, when you're like, I only get A's and I'm getting a D or a C, so don't ask for it unless you're willing to get honest and accurate. Don't ask, because you might go, oh crap, I have a really low grade. I have a really low grade, and I'm not the one giving the grade. So let's really make a distinction here. I'm not the grader. I created the system, which whatever, you may argue with the system. The grade is based on your activity, period. So I'm not grading you, it's not personal. And you don't want to make it personal. You want to make it like, wow, okay. So I have a D in my own activity to grow my business. What do I want to do about that, right? So I think people are laughing because some of you have done this and have had the experience of giving yourself a D. And, you know, I once coached an executive, and then Chin, I want to get to what you shared. I once coached an executive where they got, for the first time in like 20 years, they got like a mediocre performance review. I really mean mediocre. They were so used to getting like top reviews. And this was so disturbing to her. She was like, I need to talk to you. And we had to get on a spot call. She was like, I got my performance review and it was, you know, this, it was medium and here's, and I just waited till she was done sharing and I wrote, and I said to her, this is the best thing that has ever occurred for you. And she just was like, what? I said, this is the best thing that's ever occurred for you. I'm like, your entire life, you have evaluated yourself based on outside grading, right? Whether it was in school or in your master's program, it's like you have decided that your worth and value is dependent upon these things. And guess what? Now you got a mediocre, and now you get to distinguish more. This mediocre performance review does not equate to who I truly am. It does not mean anything. It is a blip on the screen, and I can course correct and change it. I can use it for learning, or I can use it to define me. And the same thing is true for us as coaches. So you get a D in your activity. It's like you can go into despair and be like, what's wrong with me? I'm never going to be able to do this. Carolyn and Johnny, like they have something I don't. You could do that. Or you could be like, wow, that was so helpful because now the blinders are taken off. And now I know for real what is missing from me in my business. So I really want everyone to hear that. Johnny, do you want to add anything?
No, I wouldn't add anything to that.
Okay. So Chin, I just want to say to you, like, it's 100% fine that you stepped away given what's occurred in your family. And you can take baby steps, right? Like in your situation, I might be like, let's see if you can create one client. Like, let's just have you do some baby steps back into action. Baby steps, right? It's like, because you know, you've been in the midst of a big loss and big grief, and we want to make room for that. And then we want you, like, I can share with you as someone who's had profound grief at different periods. I was able still to create some clients, even in profound grief. It happened. So even in deep loss, I was like, I really need some money. And Steve was like, let's do it. So he was like, let's create one client for you. One. So it can be gentle, right? Steve wasn't like, yeah, you better, because you're a bad coach right now. None of that. He was like, yeah. Like, he made it gentle and easy. And I want to offer to you that, and that you can still serve people. Like, I remember I once said to a coach who was grieving, they were like, yeah, but if I do this, it's going to like impact my grieving. And I said, I promise you that even serving other people, you will have plenty of time to still be in your grief. And for your consideration, you will feel a teeny bit better by serving others while you're in grief. Like every time, Chin, when I was in grief and I had the opportunity to serve my clients, I mean, my dad died while the school was happening, right? So I had to show up. I had one weekend where, you know, the fabulous Amy Ruby and Amber Chris, who was full-time faculty, and I think Steve Chandler and Devin Bandison all chipped in so that I didn't have to be there as my dad was dying. But right after that, I had to be there. Like, that was my responsibility. And it was the best thing I ever had to do. Really, Chin, it was like so helpful because even in my pain, serving meant like I was alive, right? And it just helped balance out the pain I was in, for your consideration.
She has another piece on that. She's asking if you have suggestions on how to reconnect with some of these people that she had in various stages, and then she went dark, right. And she's struggling between like what's professional versus too personal?
Great. What a great question, Chin. So very astute. I think it's really okay to be like, hey, like if I was doing this with Johnny, I'm so sorry. I dropped the ball on our communications, and that's on me. I apologize. Let's pick up where we left off. You can count on me that it will not occur. I had a personal situation I was working with. You can count on me that I'm now back. So it doesn't have to be like, and Chin, you can decide case by case. In some situations, it might be totally fine to be like, hey, I am so sorry I dropped the ball on our communications. I had a loss in the family that took my attention. And in some people, it might even be more appropriate to be, my dad died, and I apologize. And of course, everyone will be like, oh my gosh, don't apologize. It's okay. Like, we get to be human. I mean, I remember, you all will appreciate this, like when Michelle had cancer, right? And, I was really dedicated to making sure she was served. Plus I was running my business. Plus I was serving her clients when she couldn't. And I remember once, I don't know, I missed something, and she was like, you better pull the cancer card. You need to say your business partner has cancer and you're so sorry. Like, she was like, pull the cancer card for you. And I said, got it. She was right. Like, we can do that and still be really professional and appropriate. So I hope that's helpful. All right. All right. We have a few more minutes, and I want to talk. So if you have one burning question, Johnny and I want to get to it. And I want to share about next week, because next week is the final Facebook Live, and I'm excited about this one. The theme is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And I love that theme because it's about, like, this is a profession with no top. There's no ceiling. The ability to serve and to create amazing things to serve people, the creativity, the opportunities are really, there is no top. So next week is all about, like, being more in the spirit of service, being more in the spirit of creation, being more in the moment with serving people, in service to creating more clients and more financial prosperity in your business. So next week's theme is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And I also love that song. And so that's what's next week, same time, same place. And what else? How do you approach, okay, here's the final one. How do you approach a request via email for your prices when you haven't met yet? We will end with that one. So Sarah, thank you for that. The way I like to respond, and I'll often coach coaches, I'll respond with something like, that is such a great question. And the honest answer is, it really depends on what's happening for someone, what their needs are, how long we're going to work together, and roughly, and I'll give a range. So Sarah, I might give a range, and my range might be, I'm going to give low end to higher end. And low end could be for one day. And I can say that, like, look, sometimes I only work with someone for a 1 day intensive, and that might be $500. Or I might work with someone for 6 months, and that might be $3,000. And then I want to say something, and it's pretty premature. It will be better if we talk and I find out more about what's happening for you. So that's one option. The other option is, I know coaches who are like, it's really premature. My fees are really varied. Let's slow this down. That's another option, Sarah. So I don't like to be like, you should only do this one. You might play and see how it goes. You might play. All right, people, we did it. Johnny, we did it. Again, another full 90 minutes.
We did it.
Everybody here was so awesome. Love the questions and participation. Come be with us for the final Facebook Live, people. We will see you next week, okay?
And if you want the document, email us. Fitz.
Yeah, or message.
Email or message us in Facebook Messenger.
All right.
Take care.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye.